Hey everybody, it's me, Rick Acosta, the Dodger Card Collector, coming to you with another video. Tonight is Friday night, June 6th, a very late Friday night. Uh, I said I would make a video tonight, and I started watching the Stanley Cup final between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers, and it went into double overtime, and the game finally just ended with Florida winning. I think the final score was 5-4, and it was a really good game. So far, both games have been fantastic. They've both gone into overtime, and the two best teams in the league playing. Really excited to watch as I'm a big hockey fan and I look forward to this every night. Watched the NBA last night. I don't know what the heck happened there to Oklahoma City, but when I said that to a buddy of mine who was a Knicks fan, and he was saying this is what Indiana does. They just make comebacks with like less than 10 minutes left, down by 15. Amazing to watch. Good time in sports right now. Even though the Dodgers lost to the Cardinals tonight. I think they lost. I actually stopped watching because I was watching the hockey game. But wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. One was something I was originally going to talk to you guys about, and two is something that, I wanted to talk to you about from a video I saw this afternoon. So I wanted to go back in time a little for me at least, and I grew up. Most of you know I grew Los Angeles suburbs. Um, the Dodgers play in Los Angeles, obviously, and the Angels play in Anaheim, which is about 25, 30 mile separation there. I know that the Angels were originally based out of Los Angeles, and they played their first few years first year they played at the old Wrigley Field in Los Angeles. Then when Dodger Stadium opened, they moved there for a few years. The Angels lovingly referred to it as Chavez Ravine, not Dodger Stadium. Uh, it's kind of well known on record that Dodger owner Walter O'Malley wasn't too kind to Angel owner Gene Autry, which really had him look for his own ballpark. And the city of Anaheim, after the city of Long Beach tried to get in there, city of Anaheim was able to build the stadium. And one of the stipulations was when the Angels moved that they'd call themselves the California Angels. So I grew up. So going back to my original premise, I grew up in a two team town, which some of you might take for granted, or some of you who are younger might go, "What's the big deal?" Well, those people who grew up in the '60s, the '70s, the '80s, they'll say like, "Oh, I was from a National League town," or "I was from an American League town." And that basically meant back then, before interleague play, we only saw, if you lived in St. Louis, you only saw National League teams show up. Same thing if you lived in Pittsburgh, or if you, the Houston Astros back then were in the National League. Um, if you had lived in Baltimore or Cleveland, you would only see American League teams. So in LA, we had two teams. We had one in LA. When I was growing up, we had a team in Los Angeles, a team in Orange County. Still do. So I got to see both leagues. And when you say, "What's the big deal?" And I go, "No, the thing is, growing up in the '70s, I got to see my Dodgers, Steve Garvey, Dusty Baker, Reggie Smith, Don Sutton, Tommy John. But I got to see all these fun National League teams show up. The Phillies, they had Mike Schmidt, they had Greg Lazinski. The Reds, they had Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Tony Perez. The Mets would bring Tom Seaver. The Expos would bring Rusty Staub. The Cardinals would have Lou Brock. So we got to see all the wonderful National League players. And then the Dodgers would go on the road, and we'd get to see their games on television. But when they went on the road, that means the Angels came home. Back then, whenever the Dodgers were out of town, the Angels, if the Dodgers were out of town, the Angels were at home. If the Dodgers were at home, the Angels were out of town. So at that point, especially in the late '70s, one of my cousins was obsessed with the Angels, especially Nolan Ryan. And I think around 1979, we went to literally almost every game that Nolan Ryan started at Anaheim Stadium. So when the Dodgers left town, I got to see Nolan Ryan. I got to see Frank Tanana. The Yankees would come to town with Reggie Jackson and Thurman Munson, and the Orioles would bring Jim Palmer and Brooks Robinson, Eddie Murray. The Red Sox would bring in Fred Lynn, Jim Rice. It was phenomenal. I got to see all the teams, all the players. And back then, I don't know if people do this now. I know I do it with stadiums. We used to keep track of how many teams we'd seen. And I would always be, well, I've seen 12, I've seen all 12 National League teams, and I've seen 9 American League teams. And I would make a point to say, like I haven't seen the Detroit Tigers, let's say. I have to remember to go see the Tigers next time they come to town. But we got to see every team, in both leagues. And like I said, this was before interleague play. So it was a little different back then. But it was fun cheering on, and I did cheer for the Angels back then as well. It was fun cheering on two teams. The Angels weren't as fortunate as the Dodgers. The Angels didn't win their first American League West title till 1979. They had been in the league already 18 years. And by that point, the Dodgers had already won a couple of world championships, several National League titles, or National League West titles, a couple of National League championships. And the Dodgers have always been kind of, I hate saying the word dominant, but yeah, the dominant team in town. I was once talking to Don, Field of Dreams, on the phone, and I was telling him, this is when Shohei Ohtani was on the Angels. And he asked me if I'd seen Ohtani, and I said I hadn't. And he's like, "Why not?" And I remember saying, "You know what? Honestly, if the Angels, the Angels just don't really have that much of a significance out here right now, even with a wonderful player like Mike Trout, who unfortunately is injured right now. But when they had Albert Pujols, Shohei, it wasn't really talked about. When Ohtani got traded to the Dodgers, when Ohtani signed as a free agent with the Dodgers, oh yeah, all of a sudden he became the toast of the town, and now everybody talks about him. But the Angels have always been a little different, though they've had some good luck there. But I remember watching them growing up, and the Dodgers. I always say, you guys know this, the Dodgers had Vin Scully as their announcer. The Angels had Dick Enberg. And Dick Enberg's color commentator was Don Drysdale. So we had wonderful announcers. And like I said, the Angels just didn't have that much luck. In the 70s, when they traded for Nolan Ryan, that was fun. It was really fun. I've been to several Ryan two hitters, one hitters, where he took no hitters into the seventh or eighth inning. There was one game, I'm going to say it was in 1979. The Yankees came to town. Monday Night Baseball was big at that point. And one thing about Anaheim Stadium, where the Angels played, which was a lot different than Dodger Stadium, which made it a lot cooler to go to an Angel game back then, was the Angels allowed signs. The Dodgers didn't. The Dodgers are very stuffy. But the Angels would allow signs. So we decided to make a sign. We were going to sit in the top deck out in right field. And we got there really early. But before we got there, we made our sign. We got an old bed sheet out, spray paint, and Nolan Ryan was going to pitch that night. And there was a movie out in the late 70s called Murder on the Orient Express. And we said, Nolan Ryan's nickname was the Ryan Express. So we decided to change the movie title to Murder on the Ryan Express. And we put our sign up. It was long, and we brought tape, and we were able to tape it to the concrete right there on the railing, front row, where if you're sitting in the stadium, everybody could see your sign. And we put it up, and our seats were like 5 rows behind. But that night on Monday Night Baseball, I believe it was Howard Cosell and Don Drysdale and maybe Bob Uecker were announcing. Our sign showed up on television. People told us. They were like, "We saw your sign." And back then, and we were thrilled. And back then, nobody had tape of that type of stuff. But I remember Major League Baseball back then had these commercials, these promos, baseball fever, catch it. Maybe some of you will remember those commercials. And our the Nolan there was one for Nolan Ryan, a promo for Nolan Ryan, and that sign showed up, and that's where I saw it. It was on for maybe a second or two, but there it was, Murder on the Ryan Express. And that night, Nolan Ryan, he probably went into the seventh inning, throwing a no hitter. Center fielder Rick Miller dropped the ball in the seventh or eighth inning, and the official scorekeeper called it an error. And eventually Ryan did give up a hit like in the eighth or ninth. But it was just so exciting back then. And Reggie Jackson was so popular. He was just big. He was larger than life. And I got his autograph. I don't know if it was at that Yankee game. I actually got his autograph once. I still have the ball. Reggie wrote on a ballpoint pen, and that thing faded a long time ago. But it was fun cheering on the Angels back then. And finally, in 1977, free agency came along. They signed Don Baylor. They signed Joe Rudy. They signed Bobby Grich. They just started, and the next year they signed Lyman Bostock. By 79, I think they'd also traded or signed Rod Carew. By the 80s, Fred Lynn, Reggie Jackson were there. It was just a crazy time. And the Angels were able to finally win an AL West in 1979. And 1982, they did as well. 1986, they had the heartache against the Boston Red Sox, Dave Henderson, Donnie Moore. Just the whole tragedy of that still. Nobody even talks about it anymore, but I still remember that. And then eventually, I think I want to say it was 2000. It's funny. The year the Angels finally won, I can't even tell you the year. I think it was 2002 or 2003. The Angels finally, and watch somebody else say, no, it was actually 2005. I think it was 2002. But it's fun rooting for the Angels. It was really fun. But I wanted to talk to you about the Angels because today's show is actually going to be me featuring some of my favorite Los Angeles, California, Anaheim, maybe Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I'm not sure. I'm going to show you some cards from that era. And I really thought about it a lot because, I'll talk about it when I'm showing you the cards. But the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, just because I'm already at 13 minutes, is that I saw a video today with Mike Moynihan. He was talking about content creator expectations. And it's a great video. I totally recommend it for you guys. I won't go into the details just because I have opinions. But I liked everything he said. But the one thing that really stood out for me, he was talking about how long does it take to make a YouTube video? And I have to admit, like tonight watching the game, when I make a YouTube video, yes, there are times I prepare. That 1941 play ball video I sat there for weeks and thought about what am I going to do and all that type of stuff. But a lot of shows I just make on the cuff. Tonight, I knew I was going to talk about the Angels. I didn't write anything out. Everything I just said to you is with no notes. It's just me rambling. And the players that I'm going to show you, in my head, I've already picked them. When I hit a stop recording, I'm going to go look for the cards I'm going to show you guys, and then I'm going to show them to you. Mike said a 10-minute video of his takes 15 minutes to make. Now, in my case, I'm already at 14 minutes. It'll take me 10 minutes to show you cards. So 25-minute video takes me 35 minutes. And like I say, the players that I'm going to show you, while I was watching the hockey game, I knew certain stories of them. I didn't write them down, but I'll look on Wikipedia just to try to get some facts, and then I'll tell you guys about it. So I just wanted to tell you that when it comes to making YouTube videos, you're starting to see a lot of guys do fancy schmancy stuff, and that's fine if they want to do that. Trust me, I'd like to do more of that as well. I haven't even done anything fancy. And one of the people I admire the most on YouTube is Bowman, Alex Bowman 53. All his videos are amazing. And I'd love to do that stuff, but I think I don't know if I have the patience for it. So I wanted to tell you, in case you're thinking of making YouTube content, you're a content creator that's kind of like, what am I going to do? You know what? Get some cards, have a story, and just tell us about it. All right? Okay, I've talked enough. Let's look at some baseball cards, you guys. It was bugging me so much that I forgot the year the Angels won the World Series. I had to look it up. It was 2001. Now, what inspired me to show you my Angels cards today is because you guys know I've been working on the 1961 set. And when I picked up this card, Leroy Thomas, who's pictured in a New York Yankees uniform, I realized at that point I already had all the Los Angeles Angels card for 1961. And when I said that, I said to myself, wow, I have all the original Angel cards from 1961. And then I remembered I also had the 1963 and the 1965 sets. And I said, wow, I've got the Angels from 1961, 1963, 1965. All I need is 1962 and 1964. And I can, just say I have all the original Los Angeles Angels cards. So, yeah, I could see myself working on that a little. And if I want to get a little bit more bold, I can add 1966, 1967, and 1969 to the mix. And those are the California Angels. And if I do that, I will have all the Angels vintage cards from 1961 to 1980, along with some modern stuff from 1981 and 1981 through 84. So it might be a fun little project to work on the side. Luckily, Angels cards aren't that expensive. I've made my way through 61s. I've been buying some 62s and finding those for $3 to $5. But I wanted to show you, these are the original Angels cards, so to speak, because this is how Topps did it back then. Ted Kluszewski was one of their expansion drafts choices, featured in his White Sox uniform. Faye Thornberry, he's featured capless, which is very common at this point in 1961. And then, as the previously mentioned Leroy Thomas is shown in his Yankees uniform. They all say Los Angeles Angels, so these are technically Los Angeles Angels cards. Now, by the final two series, things had changed. Series 6 and Series 7 finally featured photos of the Angels in their original uniforms. And I love these cards. I love these photos. The Angel caps back then, those Angel uniforms. Look at Del Rice and Rocky Bridges. They're just the font on their jersey. Love the cap. You can't see the halo that they had up there back then. But these Eddie Yost is technically the first Topps card featured with the Los Angeles Angels player and his actual uniform. He went on to coach with the Mets. He was one of Gil Hodges' coaches. Del Rice would eventually become the Angel manager in 1972. Yeah, 1972. And I believe one of his coaches might have been Rocky Bridges. Rocky Bridges might have been gone by that point. I know that he was one of Lefty Phillips's coaches in 1970 or 1971. But these are what the original Los Angeles Angels cards looked like. So in 1962, luckily we had a lot of great looking Angels cards. Oh, we still had some guys that had been traded over the previous winter. But here they are in their spectacular looking uniforms. We have on the left Tom Morgan, former Yankee. Tom Morgan would go on to become the Angels pitching coach in the early 1970s. And Nolan Ryan is credited with saying that Tom Morgan is the man that really changed his windup, his delivery, really changed his career. And he turned a struggling Mets fireballer into a fantastic pitcher for the California Angels at that point. Steve Bilko in the center, he is more famous for his time in the PCL, the Pacific Coast League, which was classified quadruple A in the mid to late 50s. as back then, from stories I've heard, uh, they didn't talk much Major League Baseball out here in California. They talked a lot about the Pacific Coast League, the San Francisco Seals, Los Angeles Angels, the Hollywood Stars. Those were the stars of this era. And guys like Steve Bilko, who were very popular in the PCL, were making a good living out here. They didn't want to sign with the Major League Baseball team because they would make less money. Now, eventually, when the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles, things changed in the Pacific Coast League, the geography, and eventually he did sign with, at one point he was with the Dodgers, I think he was with the Phillies, probably ended his career with the Angels. Didn't have much of a Major League Baseball career, but he had a good career in the Pacific Coast League. Leon Wagner is arguably one of the first really good ball players the Angels had, and I just love the way he looks in his uniform. I always liked the turtleneck look on a ball player with the sleeves. He looks dapper in his Angels uniform. As I mentioned, he was a great ball player, a very good ball player. He put up good numbers, and he stayed with the Angels for a few years, and he was the first player. He was the first guy. For some reason, the Angels traded him. For no good reason, the Angels traded him. They got nothing in return, and this was like the beginning of them giving away ball players in trades and not really getting anything in return. But Leon Wagner had a decent career in the 60s, and it started with the LA Angels. All right, by this point now, the Angels had been in the league a couple of years. They had picked up some good players in the expansion draft. One of the first great players they had was on the left, was Jim Fregosi. He played with them from 1961 through 1971. All-star shortstop in the late 60s, just a great all-around ball player. Bo Belinsky, his debut, his rookie card is from 1962. That's a high number, but I'm featuring the 1964 card. Belinsky was a rookie, won his first 4 games. His 4th game was a no-hitter for the Angels. Very popular guy. He wore sunglasses, and he was dating actress Mamie Van Doren, and he was kind of one of the first playboys that kind of came to light. And people say the no-hitter probably really ruined his career, as he kind of got a big head and he thought he was some big Hollywood hotshot. And in reality, he was just a half-decent ball player. But Bo Belinsky was a popular player for the Angels in the early 60s. And on the right is Dean Chance, the 1964 Cy Young Award winner. There was only one Cy Young Award back then given out, and it wasn't given to Don Drysdale, it wasn't given to Sandy Koufax, it was given to Dean Chance. He had a pretty good career with the Angels. These two were buddies. They were drinking buddies. They were partying buddies. By 1966, Chance Stoll was putting up good numbers. The Angels were desperate for hitting. They kind of wanted to break up the gang a little. And again, they traded a very good Dean Chance to the Twins for Don Minchner, a couple of other guys that really didn't amount to much, sorry. Dean Chance went on to have a half-decent career with the Twins. I know he won 20 games with them 1 year. But here's another case of where the Angels were giving away players in the early 60s. Now, 2 of these guys you've probably never heard of. Some of you probably have. But on the left, I'm featuring a 1965 Topps Rick Reichart card. Reichart was a multi-sport phenom in the early 60s. And when it was time for him to get drafted, I think he was drafted in one sport, but the MLB didn't have a draft at this point, and MLB had like some type of bidding war for this guy. And the Angels eventually won out. They paid him $200,000 bonus around 1963, 1964. And at this point, this was where the owners just said, we are paying way too much money for these unproven rookies with all these bonuses. And because of players like Rick Reichart, the Major League Baseball draft was instituted in 1965, where Rick Monday was the very first overall pick that year. But you could thank Rick Reichart for that. His career with the Angels wasn't the best, suffered a lot of injuries. I think by 68 or 69, I think they traded him to the White Sox. We didn't hear much from him. I know they don't talk about him much in Angels history. Now, the two guys in the center are very interesting because I started watching the Angels in 1971. And Alex Johnson won the batting title in 1970, I believe. And he had a very good year. He and Chico Ruiz were traded from Cincinnati to California. By then, we're talking about the California Angels. Alex Johnson was some type of malcontent. I don't know if this guy was bipolar or what. Back then, maybe they didn't diagnose it, but he just seemed to have a lot of mental issues and a lot of laziness issues. And he won the batting title, as I mentioned, in 1970. Chico Ruiz was one of his best friends. In fact, Chico Ruiz is one of Alex Johnson's stepdaughter's godfather. And they were good friends. By 71, though, Alex Johnson, as I mentioned, something was going on mentally with him, just had a total attitude. And people started getting on his case, Chico Ruiz being one of them. Alex Johnson started swearing at him whenever Chico would come anywhere near him. And it led to a story that appears to be true. It was denied by Chico Ruiz, but Chico Ruiz brought in a gun to the clubhouse, to the Angel clubhouse. And I'm not saying he was going to use it on Alex Johnson, but Alex Johnson got a little nervous. And at one point, Alex Johnson, because of his attitude, was suspended. But it was admitted by Angel management that Chico Ruiz did show off a gun in the clubhouse to Alex Johnson, and Johnson got a little worried. By the end of 71, Alex Johnson didn't have the year he had in 1970. They were sick of both these guys. They fired the GM, they fired the manager, they traded Alex Johnson to Cleveland. Chico Ruiz was sent to the minors, never to be seen again on the Angels. Eventually, the Royals signed him, but unfortunately, he was killed in a car crash in 1972. One other thing that happened at the end of 1971, right before the 1972 season, was the Angels traded their legendary 10-year, 11-year player, Jim Fregosi. And they traded him to the New York Mets in a trade that brought, amongst others, Nolan Ryan, a right fielder by the name of Leroy Stanton, who actually had a few solid years in the mid-70s for the Angels, and a couple of other players. This trade has been discussed a lot. It's probably arguably one of the worst trades the Mets have ever made, one of the best trades the Angels ever made. It didn't really make the Angels winners, but it did make the Angels a reason to go see. Nolan Ryan would go on to throw 4 no-hitters for the Angels, throw over 300 strikeouts, including 383 in 1970, 383 strikeouts, I believe, in 1974. He went on to have a great career with the Angels, the Houston Astros, and the Texas Rangers. And I can't talk about Nolan Ryan as an Angel fan without talking about the man to the right here, and that's Frank Tanana, featured not in his rookie card, his 1974 rookie. He shares with several other rookies, but this is his 1975 card, and this is Frank Tanana, another guy with a mean fastball. In the mid-70s, these guys were really good. And Tanana had a lot of strikeouts. He looked to be having a great career when he hurt his elbow. To his credit, he reinvented himself and started throwing some off-speed stuff. Had a really good career with the Red Sox and the Rangers and the Tigers. I don't know if I'm missing anybody. He had a really nice long career. But these guys in the 70s were very popular players of the Angels before the free agent era. We have finally reached the free agency era, and Gene Autry, the owner of the Angels, decided to spend some major money and brought 3 phenomenal players to the Angels. Left fielder Joe Rudi, second baseman Bobby Grich, first baseman outfielder Don Baylor were all signed as free agents. And you can see the wonderful airbrush job they did on Joe Rudi and Don Baylor's caps back then. But these guys were going to make the Angels legit. And Bobby Grich had a very good career with the Angels, as did Don Baylor. Joe Rudi was okay. He got hit in the hand this first year with the Angels. He played a few years with them, but he wasn't the same player he was with the Oakland A's. But this was the beginning of what we would say was the Angels' free agency era with these 3 guys featured in their 1977 Topps cards. By 1982, Gene Autry was a spending machine. He had 4 MVP players on his team at one time. I don't even know if that's happened since. I mean, even the Dodgers at this point, I think only have 3 with Ohtani, Freeman, and Betts. But in 1982, over 40 years ago, the Angels had Don Baylor, Rod Carew, Fred Lynn, and Reggie Jackson. Baylor and Carew are featured in their 1982 Topps cards, as is Fred Lynn, but I chose to be a little different and show his in-action card. 10 years after the 1972 in-action series, in 1982, Topps returned the in-action back. So thought we'd share that one. And then show you that we're no longer in vintage anymore. The Reggie Jackson card is from the 1982 Topps traded set. So these are the glamour boys of free agency with the Angels in the early 80s. I cannot make a video of the Anaheim Angels without discussing their 2001 World Championship. Even as a Dodger fan, I loved this team. The players I had, especially these 4 players. On the left, Garrett Anderson. Next is Tim Salmon. Darren Erstad, my favorite player. Talk about a guy who hustled, a guy who just did everything. And then Paul Bunyan himself on the right is Troy Glaus. These 4 guys, along with a lot of other cast characters on that team, led the Angels to their first and only World Series against the San Francisco Giants. And even, like I said, as a Dodger fan, I was cheering these guys on. And they're featured here in their 2001 Topps baseball cards. These are the only cards I have of these guys. I'm not collecting. I don't collect cards from the 2000s, but I do have the 2001 Topps set. Now, the next year, the Angels would change their uniforms. They go back to their traditional halo look, all in red. So these are the last year. This was the last year Disney owned the team, and they changed them to these periwinkle uniforms that they had for a few years. But Messrs. Anderson, Salmon, and Erstad and Glaus were very good in their day. And lastly, you can't feature an Angels video without the 2011 Topps Update Mike Trout card. And Mike Trout, I don't care what you guys think of him. He's a great ball player. He's just a great ball player. I know he's injured. He's going to the Hall of Fame. I still think he's got something left in him. And half of you are laughing at me right now. But I bought this card. Here's a case, and I rarely talk money or anything like that, but here's a card that I bought during the COVID boom and the price started dropping. I bought this card and a PSA 8. I thought I was the smartest guy in the world. If we were discussing money, I've lost over $400 on this card. But I still love the card. I'm keeping it. I'm not doing anything with it. I don't care what anyone says. But I wanted to share with you my Trout collection and some stories growing up with I'm going to call them the California Angels. I hope one day they return themselves to being called the Anaheim Angels once their idiot owner, Artie Moreno, sells them. But anyway, if you stuck around this long, thanks for indulging me. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
It's a beautiful day for a ball game today. If you and I are out of dollars and cents,
oh honey, we can always share a little hole in the fence.
it's a beautiful day for the ladies. So throw all your dishes away. We're gonna cheer